Finally, I'm able to communicate to you all. I have been moulded, turned, riveted and coiffured, but now my true desire is about to be realised. To determine whether it is, or indeed shall be, time for tea. All I require now are the necessary gauges from which to formulate my decisions.
Please do remember to visit my online shop at steamhead.co.uk. There's a wide range of Victorian steampunk style products, such as beautiful cut out greetings cards with real wooden veneer backgrounds, the heraldic clarion door horn, which is battery powered and can replace an existing boring doorbell. There's a range of gauges, all sorts of novel gauges with real glass lenses that you can use to adorn your inventions or indeed costumes. As one of the favourites is the tea gauge that tells you how strong the cup is and how many cups you've had. Do visit the shop, steamhead.co.uk. Lots of gifts for Christmas. Fabulous, thanks very much. The boiler front is now dry, the paint, so I've put that in, and the back is fully light proofed with a mixture of primer and black Humbrol paint. So there's the flicker effect mounted inside the window, and I also used another one of my spare Darlington pair transistors to let the Arduino switch this on and off, and I can't put it off any longer. Here is the sound recording board. I'm connecting all the wires to it. It's got power leads, speaker out, and these 4 wires are going to go to the Arduino, and because it's the Arduino Mega, I've got a plethora of spare pins to choose from, which is great. So I'm going to connect this up and then load the library into the Arduino and fiddle around and see whether I can record and play back sounds. That's a very big step nearer getting Florence to speak. Very exciting. Stick the soundboard down with a sticky foam pad, you say? No, far too simple. Why use a sticky foam pad when you can use a load of brass screws and laser cut parts? Oh yes. So I've got the soundboard mounted now inside and connected up to the Arduino Mega, so the Mega can control which tracks the soundboard plays when it plays them and the volume. So let's give that a go. I've loaded one file in, which is just like Florence saying hello for the first time. So let's try that and see what happens.
At last, I have a voice. I am Florence. Finally, I'm able to communicate to you.
And I've also noticed that Florence isn't very loud. This is set on full volume, so it should be pretty loud considering it's being amplified by the horn shape, but it's still not that loud, and I think the reason for that is... Stop talking now, Florence. Let's switch her off. Right. I think the issue is, again, if you've watched the previous videos, the amplifier is designed on the soundboard, is designed to work with a minimum of 4 ohm speakers. 4 ohms being the resistance of the speaker, the amount of electricity in effect that can flow through it. The speaker I managed to find to rescue, which is somewhere buried in there, was 3 ohms, which is a bit of a pain. If I try and run a 3 ohm speaker from an amplifier designed to run a minimum of 4, too much electricity could flow and it could burn out the amplifier. So at the time I added a 5 ohm resistor, which was the smallest resistor I had, but that's even more value than the actual loudspeaker. In my lovely box of resistors, starting with 10, the recommended values, none of them go down below 10 ohms, but I have luckily found some 10 ohm resistors, brown, black, black for the colour code. So what I'm going to do, if I join 2 in parallel with 10 ohm, that'll make 5 ohms. If I join 4 in parallel, that'll make 2.5 ohms, which will be fine. Now the next thing is Florence's mouth movements. If you watch this.
At last, I have a voice. I am Florence. Finally, I am able to communicate.
As you can see, they were random, and that's not surprising because I've used the original little bit of code that I wrote just to see what she would look like and whether her mouth worked. As I send the audio board the track that I want it to play, it then, while the track is playing, it just goes round and round here, just moving her mouth. Obviously that's not good enough. Alternatively, to save all that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a circuit to allow the audio to the speaker to go into one of the spare analog in pins on the Arduino, so her mouth will move in time to the audio track. Many hours later, I have managed to come up with a solution to this because the output from the audio board is very complicated.
I have been moulded, turned, riveted and coiffured.
So that's really complicated because the audio is overlaid or is being modulated by all sorts of stuff and all sorts of things. So what I've had to do is to use a 741 op amp wired as a difference amplifier to find the difference between the two outputs, as they're not relative to 0 volts. And then once I've got that signal sorted out, filter some of the modulation waveform out, and then send it through another 741 which amplifies the signal and finally puts it through a diode into a capacitor so you get a smoothed output. And the result of all that looks like this. So that's much better.
Finally, I'm able to communicate to you all.
Because now the output is processed into a simple changing DC voltage. It's a very long time since I did any audio electronics, so I may have completely got the wrong end of the stick, but it's been a lovely opportunity to get my sophisticated oscilloscope out for the second time in the space of 2 weeks after about a 10 or 15 year gap, and it still works. Brilliant. On the off chance I haven't missed the point and this circuit might be of use to someone, here's the circuit diagram. So Florence is now speaking, and here are the numbers that are coming out of it. I'll drop them into Excel and got it to draw a graph from the analog input. It didn't vary that much because the capacitor's smoothing it, but you can see we got 2,745 results, and they do look remarkably like an audio file, an audio output.
At last, I have a voice. I am Florence. Finally, I am able to communicate to you all. I have been moulded, turned, riveted and coiffured, but now
I am not completely happy with this. I am now erring, having spent hours slaving over a hot breadboard trying to work out a wretched circuit. I think, because everything she says is going to be predetermined and recorded, that it might be better to store some arrays of times and things, information, so that the mouth can open and close in the right place depending on which sound clip is being played. I will now carry out some experiments into that and get back to you. Poor Florence. I'm going to have to take it all apart so I can get her head off and try and sort out finally why the eyes sometimes jam. A few hours later, and Florence's head is apart again. I thought I'd take the opportunity while I was fixing the eyes to add another little feature, a couple of things with the mouth. The first was a piece of plastic in here which is going to hold this brass screw with a little felt bit on the end. I'm going to cut down in a minute. That, when the mouth is the right way up, will bear on this, and I'll be able to adjust it very accurately because I can get to the screw at the back and adjust it very accurately to stop her mouth clattering because her speaking was getting very noisy.
I have a voice. I am Florence.
Another thing that I've done that really helped to reduce the noise of the jaw was I realised that the pivots inside were quite loose and were rattling about, and also there were no washers either side, so it was rubbing up one side or the other, making a terrible noise. So I've glued the spindles in and put a little brass washer up both sides so it holds it apart, and that's much quieter now. As far as the eyes are concerned, I had enough in the end, because this was a regular occurrence. Originally I had a big bolt sticking out of this eye, out here, that was the counterweight to pull the eyes downwards, and the chain would lift them up again. But it was exactly the right length to get stuck on everything. It would get stuck on the jaw, the neck, the this, the that, the other. And also, as someone points out, the eyes weren't quite level either. So the eyes are levelled up perfectly. I've sawn that bolt off, and I've got a bit of lead wrapped right at the far end, and that is clear. That doesn't hit anything. So I'm really hoping that the eyes will not get stuck anymore. So it's been an interesting day, because I think Florence will benefit greatly from these little bits of extra work done on the inside of her head. And here's the completed Florence, ready to go back on, with a lovely quiet mouth and eyes that don't get caught. It's difficult trying to control everything with these little pieces of chain. So, put her back onto there and get all her chains joined up to the respective parts of the machine underneath, and then we'll hopefully be good to go with an even better, more improved Florence. Because I want to lip sync Florence's mouth with her speech, I ended up realising I could model it on my video editing software using two different titles with a simple open her lips and close her lips, and it worked out really nicely because I could see the waveform and line everything up, and then extract the times of each of the changes
to determine whether it is, or indeed shall be, time for tea.
And I'm going to try this now. What it does, as each of the times in the array becomes small or equal to the current time, then it'll either open or close the mouth depending on whether the position in the array is odd or even.
Finally, I'm able to communicate to you all. I have been moulded, turned, riveted and coiffured, but now my true desire is about to be realised, to determine whether it is, or indeed shall be, time for tea. All I require now are the necessary gauges from which to formulate my decisions.